You take two families, one that owns real estate, one that rents real estate, give them one generation, and they're light years apart from each other. What Saving Homes is doing is we're helping specifically right now single parents either save the homes that they already have, because I believe the house they're in is probably going to be the most affordable. And then we're also helping people get into homes at affordable prices.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 407. My guest today left behind a promising career as a BMX freestyler to become a real estate investor. He built a portfolio of 50 residential properties prior to the Great Recession, and then pivoted to building a real estate tech company called Connected Investors that he ended up selling for multi-generational wealth. Ross Hamilton made his first million by the age of 20 through real estate, and he's here today to share his story and secrets that he's learned along the way. Ross, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, I'm really excited to be here. And I became a on-paper millionaire by the age of 20, but I was hustling all the way. I didn't feel like a millionaire, but I owned a lot of real estate at a very, very young age, and it really propelled everything else forward. So if you're in real estate, you're smart. And you're smart for being here.
It's definitely the place to be. I want to get the full arc of your story, but take us back to kind of the beginning, the BMX background, and just sort of like how you went from that to real estate investing.
Throughout this story, you're going to learn a lot. I always want to make sure that you can tie it to what you're doing, because there were a lot of really hard-earned learned lessons along the way. So in BMX, there's a lot of risk, right? Every time you hit a jump, you are essentially risking injury. And at a very young age, I learned how to manage risk and got comfortable with taking risks, which ultimately translated very well into real estate. You know, I went from flipping ramps to flipping houses. So when I look back, you know, it's always easy to connect the dots looking backwards, Brian, right? But how does BMX and real estate connect? You wouldn't put those together, you know, on the way on your journey. But I learned how to manage risk, and also the most important thing that I believe I learned was about co-opetition, right? In BMX, in extreme sports, the people that you're riding with, when it comes contest time, you're competing against. And that's kind of how it is in real estate. You know, I got my start in real estate through my local RIA, all people that were helping me, but then we were all competing as well. So I learned to kind of thrive in that type of environment and understood the importance of building a community of people around you that had similar goals. That really motivated me. In BMX, when I saw someone do a crazy move, I wanted to do that, right? In real estate, when I saw someone make a lot of money or reach outside their comfort zone, maybe they were a residential real estate investor, but now they're developing property, I wanted to do that. And I also learned the importance of having a mentor. You know, the people that I rode with, they were better than me. They were like my on-the-job training, my mentors. And what they did for me in BMX is they made the impossible possible. And I was very fortunate in pretty much all of my careers to surround myself with some of the best people. Brian, in BMX, I rode every day with Dave Mira. And that's like playing basketball with Michael Jordan. He was #1 X Games. So I'll never forget this one time. He's like, I'm going to do a backflip and touch my tire to the ceiling. Me, I thought if you touch the ceiling, you're going to fall straight down and break your neck. By the end of the day, the ceiling was filled with tire marks, and he had kind of proved me wrong. So then when I wanted to just do a bar spin, it just made what I was doing easy. So, you know, a big lesson I took from BMX, extreme sports in general, into the business world was to make sure to surround yourself with people that make the impossible possible. So those are some of the lessons I learned throughout my BMX career.
When you first started building your portfolio, what were some of those touch the ceiling moments where you thought that you couldn't do it, but then once you did it, you realized how simple it was?
Your first deal, I mean, is just the scariest thing in the world. I actually read the mortgage that I got from the first deal, and it said to have and to hold, like it was like a marriage. And that like froze me up. I'm like, hold on a second. We're just dating here, right? No, but it made it real. So just not being scared to capitalize on an opportunity was the biggest, touch the ceiling moment for me, because I was able to get out of my own way, get all of those fears, silenced, so I can go ahead and push forward.
Let's talk about the period before the Great Recession, 2008, and how you built your portfolio. What were you building, and what were some of the challenges you had in building that portfolio?
When I first started, I started with no money, no credit. I was just starting to build my network of real estate investors. So I had to figure out the money side of it. And a lot of people, in real estate, you have two big things to solve. Where do I get the money? Where do I get the deal? Like it's the chicken before the egg. You kind of go back and forth, but really it's like a mutual arising. Like if you can get the deal, the money is never an issue. So when you have bad deals, that money is hard to kind of come across, because money wants security. So, I started building my portfolio before the crash, a few years before the crash. Actually, no pun intended, but I crashed on my bike and my BMX career kind of ended. So I found BMX because to me, real estate was the best option for those with limited options, right? I didn't need a license to be a real estate investor. I didn't need approval from anyone else. There was no ceiling over my head. I could make millions and millions of dollars. So when I learned that more millionaires are made through real estate than any other industry, I'm like, I'm just going to play the odds. So I got into real estate the same way I got into BMX. I surrounded myself with the best of the best I could find, built a community of people, started going to my RIA, asking a lot of questions. Never be too proud to ask questions. Even where I'm at today, people think, oh, Ross, you have it all figured out. You're a guru. You've done all of this stuff. That used to get in my own way, my pride of asking questions and saying, I don't know the answer to this. Nothing. I still don't know most of the things that I'm doing, right? I just got really good at, I enjoy figuring things out. And that's how it's going to be throughout your entire career. You're never going to be at a point to where you're like, oh, I know it all. This is all easy. Real estate keeps me entertained because it's constantly changing and evolving, gives my mind something to kind of move on. So to get over all of the self-limiting beliefs, I started doing a lot of creative seller financing because I didn't have the money, but I had a desire to get into real estate. So I can get into some of that creative seller financing if you want.
How did that work? Like, take us through one of the deals that you would have done during that period.
Because I didn't have any money, I had to get good at seller financing. So there's a certain type of person in a certain situation that's going to be open to seller financing. And I found that people that either inherited properties and lived out of town, people that had a tax lien on a property and they didn't live there, or people that were losing their house to foreclosure, were willing to entertain seller financing ideas as long as you were solving a problem for them. So because I was filled with piss and vinegar and I was ready to, I just needed one deal, Brian. That was the thing. Like one deal at 20 years old changes your life, right? My friends were flipping burgers. I was flipping house. It was like exciting for me. So I did anything I could to get that one deal, which meant I would literally knock on doors. So I would drive to the courthouse, gas up my car, pull files, look at everyone that was going into foreclosure prior to the sale, and I would knock on their door and see if they'd be interested in selling their house in a creative way. And enough people were for me to be able to get into my first deal. Now, Brian, I did not have all of the answers. I didn't pretend like I had all the answers because I was so new and so young. I pretended like I had a partner, and I was just there to find someone to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'd be interested in that. And then I would go to the RIA or I would go to my connections and I'd say, hey, I have this I have this guy, Brian, he inherited a house. He doesn't want it. If I can come up with 10 grand down and pay him 500 a month, he'll sell me the house. How can I structure this? So I didn't let all of the answers get in my way of getting started. I just wanted to find someone to say, yes, I will sell this house for seller financing. And then I would figure out all the next steps.
How long did it take you then during that period to find that first house, that first deal?
Looking back, it wasn't more than a few months because every day I was just knocking on doors. And I learned so much through door knocking because there's no hiding. You're face to face. You're walking into someone while they're, you can smell the macaroni and cheese on the grill, right? You can see what they're doing. You have to overcome a lot of internal fears to knock on a door. So to me, when someone wanted to work for me, I would give them a list of doors to knock on. And 90% of people didn't want it bad enough to go knock on some doors. But to me, I'm like, if this is the thing that is between me and financial freedom, am I going to let that fear of someone saying, get the hell out of here, stop me from being financially free so I can take care of my family and build charities? No, so I like to use that as a test. And the people that did knock on doors, they're successful as heck today because they wanted it now. They wanted success right now. Sure, give me the list. I'll go knock. And they would go knock and they're a different type of person that's not going to be like, oh, well, the kids start school this week. And then I got my grandparents coming. Maybe next month on Tuesday. That sound good? No way. There's always going to be an excuse in the way. So I found people that are willing to do that. Myself and everyone else I've known who has knocked on doors seems to have been able to find a path. Not because door knocking is the path, but because they want it enough to door knock, if that makes any sense.
If you were doing seller financing, how did that insulate you from the Great Recession? Or did you crash again during the Great Recession, just like many investors did?
It worked out really, really well for me because any house that I got with seller financing, if I didn't want it, I can just give it back to the seller. So my only downside was the money that I'd put up, which was maybe 5 or 10 grand. So if I had 5 or 10 grand to lose, but 50 to 100 grand to make, I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet every time. And I did subject twos and I did traditional seller financing and I did seller financing you might not have heard about, to where if someone was stuck on a price, I would give them the price. We would set a payment they were going to get every month, but that payment, 100% of that payment went against the principal.
Zero interest technique.
Yeah, it was no interest. And I added a substitution of collateral on there if I could, to where now the collateral isn't against the house. It's against whatever house I decide. That's kind of a different conversation. But, if they were stuck on a price, I would give them the price. Here's your payments. So every month I'd build $1,000 to $2,000 in equity. And then I would rent that property out for a few years. And then I would build the equity in over time. And that's kind of how I insulated myself. But, to be completely and totally honest, the way that I insulated myself mainly was the market that I was in. When the crash came, I shifted to a military town that was close by because they had no problem getting funding. And they had just closed down a few military bases and moved them all to Jacksonville, North Carolina. So the supply and demand curve was in my favor. Any house I would get, I could sell very quickly to a buyer. So during the recession, I was making money hand over fist in a military town. So I never slowed down. I went up and then I kind of kept going up. I never had to give any houses back, which was really nice. So right place, right time, and picking your market is definitely important. And there was no studying here, Brian. It was I just needed one fact. Oh, okay, military people have financing. Let's go there. I didn't do a big analysis. I just kept doing something every day. And you got to be in the game to win, right? That's for sure.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So Ross, you have such a great trajectory on your story here. I hate to keep rushing you through it, but I do want to make sure we touch on all the dots. The next one, I think, is you starting a tech company. Can you talk about that?
To me, real estate is a stepping stone to anything else that you're passionate about in life. I got into real estate because I wanted to be able to ride my bike every day and not have to go to a normal job, right? I wanted freedom. That's why a lot of you are here. I wanted to be able to retire. So I started making money in real estate, and I had some problems in my real estate business. I'd come across deals in other cities and I didn't know anyone there. Like, oh man, this person's got a great deal in Charlotte. Then I'd be scrambling, trying to put things together and talk to people I didn't have any connection with. So that was around the time that MySpace was out. Facebook was out, but you had to be in an Ivy League school to get in. And I just went to my local community college, so I couldn't get into Facebook. So I said, you know what? It'd be great if there was like a Facebook specifically for real estate investors. At the time, that didn't exist. So just with that thought, my cousin knew a guy, and the domain name Connected Investors was available. So I bought it and started to build it up to solve a problem for myself, to build a network of real estate investors around the country. And I was just organically building that out. Now, there's a lot of challenges with building out a social network. One being you have to have a lot of people there at once for there to be any value. If you go on, you're the only person there. So, Brian, this is kind of, I don't know, sad to admit, but for a long time, I had about 80 profiles where I was just talking to myself, answering everyone's questions, just trying to get that telephone effect to start. But then over time, we started to have thousands and thousands of investors sign up. Actually, a real estate educator started promoting it, and then it just kind of took off. So I built it to solve a need for myself. And my thought process was, if I can just do one more deal or two more deals a year with this, it's worth the money that I'm putting in. So I was flipping houses to people that were part of my network. Then I would use that money to build out a new feature. So the early Connected Investors, was admittedly kind of a patchwork, because I didn't have this grand vision. I didn't raise money for it. I just made money for it. To me, it was easier to make money flipping houses than it was to go out and beg people to give me money for a tech company. So, and I didn't have to give away equity. I wound up maintaining 100% ownership of the site. And I was able to kind of build it a little at a time. Now, it got a little tough, Brian, because at some point, all of my profits from my real estate business, was going into building out Connected Investors. But once I started to get people using it, I saw what it could be. And I just got obsessed with it, with building it out. And that obsession is really what it takes, to make it to where, it's 9 p.m. On a Monday, you don't have anything to do. Let's work till 1, right? It was a fun thing for me. And yeah, we grew it to several million real estate investors, and we sold it to First American. They do 1 out of every 3 closings. You've probably used First American if you ever bought a property, about a year and a half ago.
I'm wondering what kept you going. I mean, what did you have the exit in mind, or what was the vision while you were building it? I mean, it had to be more than just it was fun. There had to be a real vision where you're like, okay, this is where I'm heading. And then obviously did you exceed where you thought you would get to?
I definitely exceeded where I thought I would get to. And Connected Investors became I was making, lots of money off that site. So it became a real business with big, with lots and lots of employees. There are always between contractors and employees, not quite 100 people, but getting up there. And it became what I did. So it became a real business. And the same way that I did BMX with Dave Mira to real estate with my first mentor, I did the same thing in the tech company. And I found people that were really far ahead of me. One of them was the CEO of Lending Tree, and he kind of revolutionized traditional mortgages back in the day. And we had launched a similar version inside Connected Investors. Because remember, there's 2 problems. Where do I find deals? Where do I find money? So we tied that same matching strategy into our company, and we were growing, and tech companies were getting crazy valuations. And I wanted to have a tech exit. I think that's to me, that was the ultimate thing to aspire for in business, is to have a, multi-generational exit. So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and it was fun. And then it also wasn't fun, right? Because when you're building a company to sell, you have to sell while you're growing. You have to have an upward trajectory a lot of the time to get those valuations, whether it's user growth or revenue or something along those lines. And it's very difficult to keep that going through all the market cycles. So we had it going, and I sold right when I didn't have any other ideas to keep that trajectory going. And tech companies were still getting high valuations. So I think I sold the exact right month of the top, which was really, really nice.
When did you actually sell it? What was the top of the
July 2021? Yeah, it was right. COVID helped a lot of online companies,
a lot of
tech companies
in front of their computers during COVID.
Yeah. So right when that stopped, a lot of those companies saw a drop in revenue. They couldn't get people's attention. So yeah, we sold right then.
Because real estate is somewhat different from a tech startup. How did you monetize that? What was the revenue? Was it all advertising, or were there other streams?
We wound up selling to First American because we were buying data from them. So First American is essentially who provides data for every property streaming software you've ever seen, even the companies with their fancy names for estimates. First American is where property data starts. It's the raw material. There's a few other big ones, but one of the 2 others was a First American company. So they've been around since 1890. So we were buying data from them, and then we created an Airbnb style user interface for people to locate properties that could be purchased for a below market price that are not listed on the MLS. So any type of motivated seller you've ever heard of, we had it all organized for you in an easy to find fashion. And when properties got really difficult to find, a lot of people started looking for non-MLS properties. And we sold access to that data for, $100 a month, or maybe a licensing fee. So we had a lot of different ways that we sold that. So that was the number one way. That was where a lot of our revenue came from. And then we also have the funding component. So the funding component is, if you needed money, you filled out a form and you had private hard money lenders compete to be your lender. And every time someone went through that form, the lender would pay us for a connection, whether they got the loan or not. So I wanted to solve those 2 issues. Where do I find the deal? Where do I find the money? Because we needed both of those things to be happening. So we didn't have an advertising strategy. It just wasn't exciting for me. Not to say that it won't pivot into that in the future, But yeah, so we had subscriptions, and then we sold opportunities to lenders.
What is the future of tech then? I mean, coming from a real estate and tech background, what's next?
I've had a lot of unique vantage points in real estate, from door knocking to sitting at the helm, one of the largest real estate networks, to being able to roll up my sleeves and sit down with an $8 billion Fortune 100 company and kind of see what they're working on. So there's some things I can't say, some things I can say. The things I can say is what I'm seeing is a trend in fractionalizing real estate, to where I don't believe that my kids will be able to be like a mom and pop real estate investor, right? Those days are limited, because Wall Street is in real estate big time. They want real estate fast. They want it fluid. So I believe that every house will be like its own stock, and you'll be able to buy bits and pieces of specific houses or packages of houses. All of the brokers, from an investment standpoint, anytime you hear the word broker, it means something's broken, right? Not for primary, but for investment, brokers will be getting marginalized and pushed aside, and there'll be fractional ownership of real estate at mass scale. So I'm seeing a lot of startups in that space. There's a lot of regulatory issues right now, but these companies are making their way through it. Yeah, and then it moves on to the blockchain. So that's what we're seeing.
So Ross, I know giving back is important to you. Could you just share with our audience some of the ways you're doing that?
Absolutely. And this to me is the full circle of being an entrepreneur. And if you look back at my story, my timing seems to be that's my superpower. My timing, when I got in, when I got out, of all of these different things. And I feel a huge sense of responsibility and appreciation for how my life has worked out from a timing perspective. Could have had the same life 4 years earlier and it might not have worked out, right? So I wanted to make sure to give back as much as I could. So I founded a nonprofit called savinghomes.org. And its main mission is to help with affordable housing, not affordable rentals, affordable housing. And here's the difference. Real estate's the number one way to become a millionaire in America, but it's also the number one way out of poverty in America. You take two families, one that owns real estate, one that rents real estate, give them one generation, and they're light years apart from each other. What Saving Homes is doing is we're helping specifically right now single parents either save the homes that they already have, because I believe the house they're in is probably going to be the most affordable. And then we're also helping people get into homes at affordable prices. It's really good. I'm using all of my influence, my time. That's why I'm doing these podcasts, and my money to kind of give back to real estate from the other side. And Brian, the reason that I got so passionate about this, it's because of the way it works. All of the money that gets given to these people eventually comes back to the charity. When they sell the house, the money always comes back. 0%, no payments, nothing fancy, but it's a way for a donation to live on forever. Because if you donate $5, $100, you should go through the process and just give $1, right? To see it. That dollar goes out and then it saves a home. And then once that home is stable and they sell it in the future, no pressure to sell, that money comes back to the charity and we can help someone else. So it has this echo effect through the generations. So it helps people in so many ways. And that's, Brian, that's where I wanted to put my time, something that I can push really hard on for 5 years, build up $100 million that's just recycling itself, helping more people save their house or get in a home. We're donating a home in a few weeks right now to a single mother with 4 kids who's been through a lot. There's so many cool ways to donate homes. If you own a lot of properties, you can actually donate a house, and between the tax write-off and the cool ways you can actually do it, you can come out ahead and you get to help people. So there's so many cool ways you can help people, but most individuals are so focused, and I was one of them, on themselves and their own family. They don't have time to look around and say, how can I help others? And I made that mistake along the way. So that's why all my time now is dedicated toward helping people save their homes or figure out how they can give back. And I'll talk one-on-one with anyone that wants to help in this mission, from sharing the website to making a donation, to giving away a house, to grants. There's so many ways you can help if you want to.
What's the website you would send people to?
It's savinghomes.org. Okay. Savinghomes.org. And on the contact form there, when you message that, it's going to me. I'm looking at everything right now. So you can say, hey, Ross, I saw you on Brian's podcast. I'd love to help out in any way. What's cool is realtors are using Saving Homes as their kind of give back. Every time they close, a certain amount of that money comes to Saving Homes, which helps save a home in their area. And it's a really good way to help on autopilot. So we can work with realtors and investors. And I will say this, we need realtors because sometimes we have houses that have to sell. So if you're a realtor and you're part of our network, you can get listings. Sometimes people's homes get saved and we're buying them time to find them a new house because they just can't afford their house. It happens sometimes, but I'm not going to let them get taken advantage of by investors because I know every single trick that's out there. And I'm going to make sure that their children have a soft landing somewhere. Because that's what this is really about. A lot of people say, hey, individuals that are losing their house to foreclosure, they messed up. They deserve this. 56% of foreclosures are because of a medical bill. Okay. They had a nest egg saved up. They didn't have credit card debt. They just had a really bad experience. And even if the parents did deserve it, the children don't. Right. So keep that child in the home so they don't have to lose their best friend and move 5 school districts over because it's so hard to get rentals now. You have a foreclosure on your record? Who's going to rent to you?
What's your favorite hack or app?
Well, the app that I'm obsessed with right now is this habit tracker app. I don't even know the name of it. I can just picture it's called UltiSelf, ULTI self, because I believe all success is based on your habits. And I'm trying to put new habits in my life. So this app helps track your habits and it reminds you of the things that you are doing and that you're not doing. And then you can see how you're doing on creating your new habits because if you're going to do something you've never done before, you need new habits. So UltiSelf Habit Tracker is the app that I am really enjoying right now.
How would people find out more about you or get a hold of you? And one more time, make sure you plug savinghomes.org.
Go to savinghomes.org and just hit the contact form up. You know, I sold my network of millions of people. So I'm starting from zero again. So I'm answering emails. And if you can help in any way or make any introductions from people that do podcasts to social influencers, I'm all ears. And there's a single parent out there that is going to benefit big time from anything you can do. So
Ross, thanks so much for coming on the show today. And it's really fascinating hearing your story from being a BMX freestyler to building a portfolio and leveraging some really creative techniques to build that portfolio through seller financing. And then pivoting after the Great Recession to building a tech company, Connected Investors. Fascinating hearing about that and your success with selling that. And then what you're doing to give back through savinghomes.org. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's HIGinvestor.com.